Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the National Timely Action Hour. This is the show where we talk about everything from comic books to action figures and everything in between. My name is Aidan, and I hope that you're doing well today. So in this video, I'm going to be doing a review of the Avengers Disassembled, aka Chaos, by Brian Michael Bendis and David Finch. Now, this is an anniversary for the Avengers, despite what the title might suggest. This collects issues number 500 to 503 plus Avengers Finale. So at the time that this was written and created, the Avengers, as I said, were reaching their 500th issue, although this was part of volume 3 of the Avengers. But you know, Marvel and DC like to have the legacy numbering if it's a different volume. So if it's coming up on an anniversary, then it will be, you know, issue 80 of the, you know, latest volume, but, you know, issue 400 if it's, you know, coming up on the anniversary or whatever. But this was, I believe, issue 85 of volume 3, but 500 overall at the beginning of this story. But basically, so the Avengers are a complicated team. I've briefly discussed them on the show before, and I do plan to do more Avengers stories in the future. So if you are interested in that and are new to my show, then please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to be notified when I post those videos. And if you enjoyed this video, then please click the like button. And if you did not like it, then I apologize, but you can hit the dislike button. And please leave a comment telling me your thoughts on this story and any suggestions for future videos and any constructive criticisms. And in the description of this video, I will leave a link to my podcast, so please consider subscribing there, as well as my social media profiles. I have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, and Discord, and you can stay up to date and send me messages there. And I'll also leave a link to my Patreon page and merch store, so if you'd like to support this show financially, I would greatly appreciate that. But back into the video here. So also I am planning to do a review next year of the Avengers #1 from 1963, because I have a reprint of it, and I am saying that it's next year because I've already got the videos until the end of 2025 scheduled, and I've got all of 2026 scheduled. So at the time of recording, it's almost Halloween 2025, so I have videos planned up until December 30th of this year, and then I'll take a few days, then, you know, start of January up until the end of December. But yeah, so the Avengers 500 to 503, aka Chaos, is a story that opens up, you know, pretty nonchalantly. The Avengers are at Avengers Mansion, which is the home of Tony Stark, who at this point has revealed his identity as Iron Man. For the longest time, Iron Man was his bodyguard, which is a secret identity that Iron Man had maintained since his inception, up until I believe 2001-ish. And this is 2003, 2004, so just a couple of years since his identity went public. But not all of the Avengers have secret identities. A lot of them are public at this point, but, you know, some of them still maintain secret identities. And I don't really want to get into that at this point. But Tony Stark converted his mansion in New York City into the Avengers headquarters, and they are hanging out in the meeting room. Jarvis, who's a human being, not unlike, you know, unlike the films, because in the films Jarvis is a clanker, aka an AI system, but also in the films, Edwin Jarvis, Tony Stark's butler, is a real person. He's just they just show him in, when Howard Stark, Tony's father, was a younger man, like in the Agent Carter show and the Avengers 4. But anyway, so the Avengers are hanging out at the meeting room, shooting the shit, and then they get a red alert, and Wasp, who is the leader of the Avengers, Janet Van Dyne, who was a founding member, she's like, hey, pull up the screen, let's see what's going on. And a former Avenger by the name of Jack of Hearts, his zombified corpse is pulling up onto the lawn. And he died saving the second Ant-Man, Scott Lang's daughter. So Scott goes out to see how he's alive and what's going on, and all Jack can say is, he whispers, I'm sorry, then explodes. And I love this splash page. And then in this other panel we see the impact. But yeah, so the Avengers at this point are Iron Man and Wasp and Yellow Jacket, founding members. Hank Pym, after he stopped being Ant-Man, he had a few identities. He was Ant-Man, then he was Giant Man, then he was Goliath, then he was Yellow Jacket. He's Yellow Jacket at this point. But we've got the founding members, Iron Man, Wasp, Yellow Jacket, and then we've got She-Hulk, Hawkeye, Captain America, Ant-Man, Captain Britain, and yeah, I think that's it. But in the explosion, it is revealed that Ant-Man is dead, and we see his bony hand. And one thing I really like about Brian Michael Bendis, this is the first book that I've reviewed on this show, I believe, the first book that I reviewed that he's written, although I have read some of his other comics, and I think that he's a talented writer. It's just that he doesn't always pay attention to continuity. And in a big anniversary event like this, you should do that, but, Brian Michael Bendis cannot be bothered. And I'm not saying that his writing suffers from it, but if you're like me and you read a lot of comic books and you look up information about the characters that you like or don't know about and are interested in learning about, you read their histories and you're like, oh, so when he wrote these two characters meeting, that wasn't the first time that they met, even though they acted like they did in the book. That's weird. But, that's just the nature of... Marvel Comics has been around since 1939, so obviously you're going to get some overlap. And, DC's been around since 1935. Again, you're going to get some overlap. But, the thing about DC is that every time, things get confusing, they have a crisis. Whereas Marvel, the closest thing they've had was Heroes Reborn, which I'll do in a later date, but they never rebooted, so, or at least hard reboot. They always do soft reboots. They're like, okay, this is a new initiative called All New, so here we go. But anyway, so Scott is dead, and at this point in time, Tony Stark is the Secretary of Defense for the United States government, and he is at the United Nations giving a speech. He's also joined by Scarlet Witch, who is an Avenger. And he gets the feeling that he's drunk, even though he isn't. He has been clean and sober for a while now, but he gets the feeling of inebriation. But he sees the ambassador from Latveria, and he starts going on a rant saying, we should raze Latveria to the ground and build an amusement park. Everyone would feel better. But Black Panther, who is the king of Wakanda, is there, representing his country, and he's like, calm down, buddy. you shouldn't be saying stupid things like that, especially, you know, here and with your position in your government. But Yellow Jacket is there with Iron Man 2, and he's like, hey, calm down. He's like, get off of me. And this is when I was like, oh boy, this might not be such a good story, but you know, I do enjoy the story. It's just that there are parts where I'm like, ugh. And this is one of those parts, and it's pretty early on in the book, where Hank says, what's wrong with you? Shut up. Tony, don't you have a wife to beat? Get out of my nose, man. He walks away, and I was like, what the fuck? Because in the 70s, when Hank first became Yellow Jacket, he was having a mental breakdown, and Janet, his ex-wife at this point, but you know, this was shortly after they got married, she was like, honey, what's wrong? He's like, get away from me, and he backhands her. And yeah, that's one of the most infamous moments in comics. But yeah, Tony in his drunken stupor is like, oh, I was like, oh boy. But Wanda confronts Tony. He's like, I swear to you, Wanda, I didn't touch a drop. I've been sober for years. And she's like, well, you could have blacked out. He's like, I didn't. Meanwhile, S.H.I.E.L.D. is putting out the blaze at Avengers Mansion, and Captain America and the Falcon show up. And they're checking in on everybody. And we have this nice moment where Jarvis is, you know, like, I'm fine, you know, let me get off the stretcher. And the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent is like, you know, listen, Pappy, there's a lot to do here. Just tell me where it hurts so we can... And Cap interrupts him, and he's like, you treat him as if he were me, okay? As far as I am concerned, this man is an Avenger. And that's a nice moment. Then Cap sees one of their Quinjets flying in a bit too fast for his liking, and Vision flies it into the remains of the base. And one thing, the only criticism I have for the art is that sometimes Finch will... I don't know if this is Finch drawing it or if it's the inker, who is Danny Mickey, but I don't know who is doing this, but sometimes the faces do look a little odd. But otherwise, I think that the art is very well done. And the colors by Frank Darmada are very cool, in my opinion. But yeah, it's pretty messed up that Vision flies into the base, and he starts rambling on about, we deserve this. I don't know what's going on, but we deserve this. And then he vomits out some metal balls that become Ultron droids. And yeah, we get an epic fight where the Avengers fight 3 different Ultrons. And She-Hulk starts going into a more berserker rage. Now, I've talked about She-Hulk before. I'll leave a link to my review of the Savage She-Hulk #2. I don't have a copy of #1, but I found issue 2 in a, you know, dollar bin. But I've talked about her before, and She-Hulk is a very cool character that I enjoy. Hulk is one of my favorite Marvel characters. It would have to be Spider-Man, Hulk, the Fantastic Four, and Captain America as my favorites. But She-Hulk, unlike her cousin, can actually maintain her sanity while she's in Hulk form. But she starts to become more savage. And we get this moment, sort of like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where Captain America is about to, you know, bring his shield down on the neck of Ultron, and he's like, you gotta sever the neck, that's how we kill him. But She-Hulk, in a berserker rage, smashes this one Ultron robot, then picks up the Vision and tears him in half. And it is insane. But very cool to look at. And then She-Hulk is about to crush Cap with a shield jeep. But then we cut to this dark room where these two mysterious figures are like, is it over? No, not yet. There's more, much more. They'll pay. Then we get the cover for 501. But Iron Man is on his way to his mansion when he gets a call from President Bush's chief of staff. He's like, I'm sorry, Mr. Stark, but we have to let you go as Secretary of Defense. And he's like, if I could just speak to the president. I'm afraid that's not possible, Anthony. You've done some good work, but this is too embarrassing for the government, so hasta la vista, baby. But I really like this panel work here where we see Tony in like this dark void where he's naked and he's got the screen, but then we learn through here that he's in the Iron Man suit flying over, and I really like this panel work here where it zooms out of his face and onto the armor to show him flying. But yeah, She-Hulk is about to crush Cap. Captain Britain tries to use her magic sword to stop her, but it doesn't work. Cap uses his shield to block the Jeep, but it dislocates his shoulder. And She-Hulk starts smashing up some cars. Then Iron Man arrives and punches her, and it's cool to see how he gets into the fight. And Hawkeye's like, holy crap, man. And he's trying to get Tony up to speed. But yeah, so Falcon finds Janet unconscious, and she is still shrunken down, but normally when she's hurt she reverts back to her normal size. So it's bad that she's not going back to normal. And I like this splash page of Yellow Jacket in the Giant Man form, and he's towering over the city. I really like that. But he looks down, he sees the mansion on fire, he sees the Ultron robots, he sees Vision torn in half, and he sees Falcon holding Janet. And he's like, Sam, come with me, we gotta take her to the hospital now. And he's like, okay. But we cut to the hospital where Sam and the doctor Sam's holding Steve while the doctor puts his shoulder back in, and Captain Britain is unconscious. She-Hulk is in a back to tank type thing. Scott's in the morgue. Vision's being packed up and shipped to Stark Tower so he can analyze what's going on. And Hank is by Janet's bedside, and he's pouring his heart out how he's like, when we were married, we loved each other, and I still love you, but we had our problems, and I'm sorry, but I just need you to wake up, please. Then Clint, Steve, Sam, and Tony are in the courtyard or an atrium. I don't know where they are, but somewhere within the hospital garden. I don't know. But they're talking about what's going on, and I like Bendis's dialogue, but I don't like how, and I like how it's realistic. It's just that sometimes he repeats things, and I'm like, what is this, Frank Miller, Dark Knight 2? You don't need to repeat every sentence, okay? Just have someone interrupt someone, then say, as I was saying, or just continue on the thought. Because that's more realistic. Because if you're in a conversation with someone and someone interrupts you, you're like, oh, sorry, let me continue, or whatever. But I just don't like that. But then Hank comes out, he's like, hey, Tony, tell them what you did. You got drunk at the UN. now the UN is pulling our funding. This is one of the examples of what are you doing with the face. But there's only a few more examples of that, but I just wanted to point that out. But it's like, listen, I wasn't drunk. And Cap and Sam are like, okay, we believe you. But Hawkeye's like, listen, my dad was an alcoholic. He gave me every excuse under the sun. I don't believe you. And Tony is like, well, fuck you too, I guess. But yeah, so they go back to the mansion because they get an alert on their communicators, which is just their Avengers ID cards. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but the Avengers ID cards are their communicators as well, and I think that that's really cool. But then we get this awesome double-page splash of all of the former Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D. showing up to help. And yeah, we've got the Submariner, Black Panther, Moon Knight, the Fantastic Four, Daredevil, Nick Fury, Jocasta, Spider-Woman, Miss Marvel, Hercules, Spider-Man, Wonder Man, Tigra, Hellcat, Captain Marvel, Power Man, the Black Knight, and some others whose names I have no clue about because I don't normally read the Avengers. But yeah, I really like this. Then we get the cover for 502, which is cool. And yeah, so they're like, hey, so we came to help. And Nick Fury is like, hey, get out of here. This is a crime scene. You know, no matter what your good intentions are, we need to figure out what the heck is going on. And they're like, and Mr. Fantastic's like, yeah, but Fury, that's why we're here too. That's why we all stood out here waiting for Cap to show up for dramatic effect. Because, you know, in the hierarchy of the Marvel Universe, insert The Rock.
The hierarchy of power in the DC Universe is about to change.
The hierarchy of the Marvel Universe is Captain America, Mr. Fantastic, Spider-Man, and then everyone else. Well, that's just I added in Spider-Man, but Spider-Man is doing his own thing most of the time, but he is sometimes an Avenger. But yeah, so anyway, they have this little argument, and then Dum Dum Dugan, who's Fury's right-hand man, gets the call from the chief of staff saying that the government is going to cut the funding to the Avengers because not only was Tony Stark, you know, housing them in his house, but he is also using his fortune to feed and clothe the Avengers, but they also got government subsidies. So the government is like, sorry, but because of all the controversy, we got to pull the funding. And Cap comforts Miss Marvel, aka Carol, and that's a nice moment because she's like, oh my gosh, is Scott dead? And he's like, yeah. But yeah, then the Kree invade, and we have an awesome fight where the Avengers and the Fantastic Four all fight the Kree. And I was looking at this page and I'm like, what the fuck is Daredevil gonna do against the Kree? Honestly, I like Daredevil, but what the hell is this man gonna do against the Kree? He's got echolocation and he knows Kung Fu. This is an alien armada. What is this man gonna do? Kung Fu won't beat a laser gun. No matter how awesome you are at acrobatics and dodging out of the way with your, you know, echolocation. Also, what's Hawkeye gonna do with bow and arrow? I mean, Captain America, he's a super soldier, so I get that he's able to last longer than you guys, but come on! But anyway, so they fight the Kree, and Fury's like, this doesn't make any sense. They've got enough firepower to level the city 10 times over. Why are they sending ground troops? And, he's not wrong. And I like seeing Spider-Man web up the Kree soldiers and like pull them down. And he's using his web foo. And Cap is interrogating one. He's like, it was foretold that on this day we would take the Earth. And then Hawkeye gets this cool moment where he's shooting the aliens, but then his quiver gets blasted by a laser rifle, and one of his explosive arrows catches fire, and he's like, oh crap, not like this, not like this, like this. And then he grabs a Kree with a jetpack, he presses the button, the ignition, they fly up towards the ship, and it explodes. So Hawkeye is dead. And Cap is like, ugh. But then he quickly gets back into soldier mode, and he's like, Avengers, assemble! And then they charge in, and it's really cool. But then it's revealed that these were not actually Kree ships. They are cardboard. It was all an illusion, and Doctor Strange arrives. And he is like, but I thought by now you would understand the true nature of these attacks. The magics are being abused. And Cap is like, oh no, because Cap is realizing the, wheels are starting to turn in his head. And then we get the last part before we get the special issue at the end. And I really like this cover where Cap is kneeling down, surrounded by the equipment of his friends. But we flash back to a undetermined time just then, where Wasp and Scarlet Witch are at the pool in the backyard of the Avengers mansion, and Hawkeye is practicing his shooting out of earshot. But the women are talking about how Wasp thought that she was pregnant, but turns out she wasn't, and she's relieved because, in her opinion, superheroes should not be parents because the life they lead is too dangerous. And one could make a valid argument against that, but I do enjoy seeing superheroes in parental roles, but that's just me. But Wasp is like, no Avengers should not have kids. Superheroes should not have kids. That should be a rule. And you thought you could have two? And Scarlet Witch is like, what are you talking about? And Wasp is like, oh, humana, I gotta go to the bathroom, excuse me. But okay, backstory time. So the Scarlet Witch is the daughter of Magneto. She's a mutant. Her brother Quicksilver, same deal. They were part of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, Magneto's team of mutant terrorists, when they first appeared, but then they reformed and then joined the Avengers. And, later on, when they invented the Vision, Scarlet Witch, for some reason, God knows why, became attracted to this dirty robot. But, so she and Vision got married. That's stupid. This is why I don't normally read the Avengers, because we have stupid shit like that, and I know it's just a stupid comic book for kids, but come on, a woman cannot marry a robot. It's unnatural, even if she is a filthy mutie. I digress. But they had children, and that is to say, Wanda wanted to have kids, but she's married to a stupid robot, and they decided, and God forbid she adopt a child or two, but she's like, I'm going to use my magic powers to conjure 2 children so that me and my clanker husband can raise them. And I'm like, Clanka, please. Mutie, please. Now, how is a mutie gonna conjure a baby? Mutie, is you gonna give it back? But I digress again. So once it was revealed that her kids weren't actually real, they went away because she didn't believe enough or whatever. And Agatha Harkness, who was the babysitter or nanny for Franklin Richards, Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman's son, who's a good guy in the comics, but in the movies is evil. But Agatha trains Wanda, and she helps her, forget using a spell. But then later on in the 90s, Wanda remembered and then got over it. But Brian Michael Bendis didn't read that. And so the entire premise of this story is based on a guy not doing research into the work that he is supposed to be doing. And he got paid for it. What the fuck? But, yeah, Doctor Strange is like, yeah, so Wanda, she went cray-cray after finding out that that she had kids, but they weren't real, and that they're gone now, and that she was mind-wiped. So, yeah, then she killed Agatha, and now she's gonna preemptively kill you because she knows that you are, gonna try and stop her from conjuring her kids again. And Cap came to that conclusion, once Doctor Strange started talking, and Beast, who was a founding member of the X-Men but then became an Avenger, is like, yeah, so about that, because Doctor Strange is like, what happened to her kids? I delivered her kids, because I'm a doctor, but what's going on? And so Beast is like, yeah, so listen, she conjured the kids, and Cap also explains the rest of it to Steve, if you will, and he's like, and Carol is like, yeah, so she has a chaos magic, whatever that means, and Steven is like, I'm the Sorcerer Supreme. There is no such thing as chaos magic, even though in Marvel Comics it was clearly established beforehand that chaos magic is a thing, and that's part of what Wanda's powers are. But I digress furthermore. But yeah. And then we get this cool montage of George Perez, John Byrne, and either John or Sal Buscema art. I'm sorry, I know that they're related, but it's hard to tell them apart. But one of the Buscemas. But we get this montage of classic Avengers art where Doctor Strange is like, so imagine, if you will, there's this woman who's gone through a lot of trauma. She learns that she's a mutant with the power to control magic. Unlike me, she didn't have to learn magic through study and sacrifice. She just has it because she's a mutant. Now imagine, if you will, this woman wants to play mother, and she conjures children. Then she is torn away from them and mind wiped, and then she learns that her friends hid the truth from her. Now, do you think that this woman would maintain her sanity, or do you think that she would go crazy? That is fair. You make some good points there, Doctor. Then we get some more montages of classic art, and I really like that, like Jack Kirby. We get some more Perez and Byrne and Buscema and other artists who worked on the Avengers. It's really cool. But now, does anything I've described not sound like Wanda Maximoff? And Cap's like, well, when you put it that way. And Wonder Man, who was his own mess, is like, no, you're wrong. And Iron Man's like, is he though? Is he though, Simon? But then we get into either the Mindscape or just a look into Wanda's or some, whatever this is. Wanda's playing house with Vision, Agatha, Simon, and the kids. And Cap shows up. He's like, listen, Wanda, sweetie, you gotta stop this nonsense. And she's like, no. Well, the kids, using her voice, are like, no. Then she conjures up the Red Skull and some Nazis, which I think is in poor taste, but considering what her father went through. But they attack Cap, and then they snap out of the dream or whatever. And Wanda is hovering above, and she's like, don't try and stop me, or I'll kill you. And Carol is like, stop it, you killed Scott, you killed your husband, you killed all of our friends. And then she summons visions of some other heroes to fight them, like Rogue, who has a whole history with Miss Marvel. I don't want to get into that right now because we're already pretty long into this video, and we're almost done the story. Then she summons up Hulk and some other visions to fight them, like Wolverine and Ultron, etc., etc. It's cool, really cool. But then Doctor Strange is like, nope. And he summons the Eye of Agamotto to make us see the truth. The Eye of Agamotto will show you the truth. And she's like, ah! And we even get this cool moment before that where she summons Dormammu, which is awesome. But yeah, the Eye of Agamotto knocks her the fuck out with the truth, and Cap is cradling her, and Fury and the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Go into the house, and they see Agatha's corpse like it's the end of the movie Psycho, and that's really cool. And Magneto shows up. He's like, give me my daughter. I will take her to Genosha so Professor Xavier can heal her mind. And the story ends with Sam and Carol hugging and the Avengers walking away. But then we flash back to the actual issue where Wanda and Pietro joined the Avengers, and we just get some reprintings of those, last few pages where they joined up. And it's cool. We get some beautiful Jack Kirby art and the kooky Stan Lee dialogue. But then we go into Avengers finale with a gorgeous cover by the late great Neil Adams. And so the Avengers show up, and we get various different artists working on this issue, which is really, really cool. But they show up to the ruins of the house, and they're like, yeah, so that was fucked up, and I guess we're gonna disband because we all have to deal through, go through and process the trauma, and also my stock has tanked, Tony says, because of being fired from the government and this nonsense. So yeah, I can't pay you guys anymore, and my house burnt down, so I'm gonna call the city to make sure that it's a historical site, but every man for himself. And then he before he flies off, they all toast each other. Iron Man, since he's still on the wagon, has a bottle of water, and everyone else has, I don't know if it's vodka or whiskey or whatever. But Pietro shows up. He's like, yeah, I'm sorry about my sister doing this. That's partly on me because I wasn't here to help, but yeah. But I like how the Avengers all, they toast and they reminisce. Hank and Janet might reconcile their marriage. Captain Britain's going back to England. Sam is, going back to civilian life because he can't deal with this nonsense anymore. And I don't blame you, Sam. Being a superhero is hard, and you know, having your friends being murdered by one of your other friends, that's also hard. But yeah, so they all say their goodbyes, but they reminisce first. And Tony's favorite, they talk about their favorite moments, and Tony's is when they assembled in the first place, and we get this recreation, which is really cool. And Janet's is when they found Cap and resurrected him. Hank, his favorite was the Kree-Skrull War. Simon's was when Wanda and Vision got married, and you can tell that whoever drew this used the promotional photo for Attack of the Clones as the reference, because Wanda here is clearly drawn to look like Natalie Portman. Beast's favorite was the Korvac saga. Carol's was when they fought Thanos for the first time. Jarvis, I don't remember which story this was, but I have heard of it. But Jarvis's favorite was when they fought the Masters of Evil in Avengers Mansion. Sam's favorite was Ultron Unlimited, which is cool. Cap never really gave it any thought, so we don't see Cap's favorite moment, but the Avengers toast. And I love George Perez's work on these 2 pages. It's really cool. Then we get like a moment where they go to greet the public, and they're holding a vigil, and that's really sweet. Yeah, it's really sweet. And that's the end. Then we get some interviews with Bendis and Finch. But overall, I do like this story. It's just I do have problems with it, which I have expressed during my review. But on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being dog shit and 10 being, you know, a masterpiece, I'd have to say that this is a 7, in my opinion. It's not terrible, but it's not amazing. So yeah, that is my review of the Avengers Disassembled, aka Chaos, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and I sincerely hope that you have a wonderful day.